Yes, hello Bhargav, hello everybody. Bhargav Reddy, I'm with the Operations Director of Asia Pacific for APAC Assistance, and I'm the Director of APAC Assistance. Bhargav, just wanted to cover off on some of the issues for clients and the wider risk community. Firstly, obviously there's national versus provincial powers being played out amongst the political groups in Pakistan. I might get you to just cover off on that if you would.
Thank you, Paul. In Pakistan, we had multiple protests, and the most important one of those was led by PSP, Pakistan Zamin Party, which is basically in alliance with the federal government led by Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party of Imran Khan. Now, the protest was against the opposition podium, which they have formed against the federal government called Pakistan Democratic Front or Pakistan Democratic Movement. Now, the rally is primarily to show that not the entire country is in support of the opposition, who have been allegedly harassed by the federal government with corruption cases. Now, how do we treat these corruption cases against opposition party is a big quagmire. People who have decried corruption in the country have supported it despite the political motives, while the traditionalists have called them a ploy to oust any credible opposition within Pakistan to make it a single party military backed country. So the protests are unlikely to die down in the next week or two. It's going to be a constant recurring process, but it's unlikely to cause major clashes between the party members. However, we can expect clashes between the opposition supporters and the armed forces, or even police in some of the major cities like Karachi or Lahore if the protests do escalate. There could be minor disruptions for office goers in major cities, but beyond that, it is unlikely to cause massive disruptions across the country.
Okay, Bhargav, and like always, we recommend that keep aware of where these demonstrations and protests are emerging and avoid them. Bhargav, while we're on Pakistan, it's probably worth just updating. I know there's also been demonstrations in Karachi, Lahore, and Kohat because of the anti-France demonstrations. You might like to just cover off on that quickly too.
Yes, it seems like the anti-France protests do not see an end in some of the Muslim countries like Pakistan. And this is primarily because the politicians have used it to stoke the local population against France, which from the outside may seem impervious, but apparently President de la France, Macron, has touched some really sensitive nerves with his stance on the cartoons, which allegedly offend some of the key figures in Islamic tradition, including Prophet Muhammad. Now, how do we treat it? It needs to be very sensitive, because the faith in itself is highly traditional, quite conservative. So we got to respect it, especially when you are operating in Islamic countries like Pakistan, Indonesia, Bangladesh, where also there have been protests. Some of the common features and demands in these protests are that they boycott anything related to France, cut diplomatic ties, boycott all the French products. So our advice to businesses operating in such countries is that be very sensitive about people's sentiments, avoid exposure of French identity, and or even going near the French embassies or consulates where the security has been increased, including in Lahore and Karachi, and ensure the French employees, if you have any, they are well updated, well informed, and they are guarded at all times, because these are sensitive issues. We never know how these protests escalate in some of these countries.
If you have time, I might get you to just cover off also in India. Obviously there's been a potentially massive data breach of 20-odd million users on the Big Basket e-commerce platform. Could you cover off on that?
Certainly, Paul. So Big Basket, just for a background, is one of the biggest e-commerce websites in India, primarily focused around the groceries and the day-to-day commodities in India, basically. So they are nowhere near some of the bigger names like Flipkart or Amazon, but Big Basket is big enough that it has lost credible data or potentially sensitive data, nearly 20 million at that. This was exposed by a research firm called Cybel, and such data breaches are not uncommon. Probably in the last month or two, there have been 2 or 3 reported in India itself. So businesses need to be on guard at all times in India, especially against cybersecurity risks. They need to make sure they conduct periodic audits. They ensure their employees follow some of the good governance in terms of cybersecurity practices. And also ensure the network settings or the network security protocols are up to date with that of the rising risks in the cyber community. And one other interesting aspect is that the alleged hacker has sold the 20 million odd data belonging to 20 million odd people on the dark net. Now, it's very hard to confirm such allegations or such findings, but the best thing what we can do as businesses is to be on guard at all times. We cannot predict such attacks, at least not in this day and age.
Bhargav, thanks. Just before we close out, I might also mention that a lot of these data breaches are hitting companies that actually have quite established cybersecurity protocols, but they're failing to train their staff sufficiently. And so there's various mechanisms that people are utilizing or the cyber bandits are using to get information by calling and or portraying that they're a senior executive. So this is not just a technological approach, it's also the fact that disgruntled employees are very apt for persuasion. So you need to look at all dimensions. This is not just a technological software issue, and it behoves all companies to get outsiders to come in, us included, to actually look more critically with a view from outside that may have a different and a more broad level of expertise than a company has internally. Well, Bhargav, look, thanks very much for that quick run up on South Asia. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for joining us.